seen inside the Purple Sage Inn? And like, yeah. And then it'll be like the Blue
Madam
Rose Inn
Mayor,
or something. Like it's always like.
Hey,
You want to
Nice.
regavel?
no, we're good. I don't like touching that at all, if I'm honest. All right, so welcome to the Tuesday, April 27th, 2021 regular city council meeting. We excuse Mayor tonight. He was traveling, so he won't be here, and we will begin with a prayer or a thought by Councilmember Bowers, followed by the pledge.
Dear kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful for this day and the ability that we have to gather together as servants to this city. And we're so very grateful for the moisture that we've received today. Please continue to bless us with the moisture that we need to thrive in these lands. Please be with us tonight, that we can have my spirit to be with us, that we can make good decisions, that we can make decisions that are positive for the people who live here and our friends and neighbors in our community. We would ask that we would go home tonight in peace and safety after the meeting. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, has everyone had a chance to review the consent agenda and minutes? And are there any questions or discussion on those things?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda and minutes from April 13th, 2021.
Second it. Sorry.
All right, nice. So that's Monson and Nilsson. I'm gonna forget your names tonight because I have to be right here, so sorry about that. If that happens, I'll just be like, yeah, thanks, that helps. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, sounds unanimous. So, it's a pretty short agenda today, but is there anything on the agenda that you might have a conflict of interest that you need to declare?
Yes, I might need to, just with the baseball dirt. My brother's a baseball coach,
Okay,
and Jimmy Johnson is kind of spearhead a lot of this, is my cousin, I guess. That
okay. Thank you for declaring that.
You can still make a decision to vote as long as you declare
right.
if we vote. Well, I don't
We're not
think we
voting
voted
on
tonight.
it, but David wanted me to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is good to clarify if you plan to participate in the discussion regardless of the conflict of interest as well. So.
I plan to, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so now is the time. Anyone in attendance, if you would like to address us, you're invited to do so. We remind you that it should be brief and it's not a time for substantial discussion. So anyone want to talk to us, or we all just hang out today? Nice.
I like hangout parties.
They just came to see the mayor.
And they're sorely disappointed that it's me. Sorry, guys. So, reports, mayor's not. Should I like take full control because I'm the mayor tonight? Get on my soapbox. Does anyone else have information that they wanted to report on? Anything? All right, city manager, budget work session, conferences and election updates.
Yeah, so I didn't do a staff memo with this because these are some just very brief updates, but you probably saw my email about the work session for this Saturday. Councilmember Monson and Nielsen can't make it because they're state delegates. So we're just proposing next Tuesday. Now, so that we have enough time if we need to make edits and things for the public hearing on the 11th. And then if we need to do an additional work session on the 18th, if that makes sense.
And how long are we thinking it's going to be and what time are we proposing?
7 o'clock, or we can meet earlier if you want. I was actually going to ask you that. So usually with the budget work sessions, I'm sorry.
What's the date?
The 4th Tuesday. So usually you probably want at least a couple hours. I would like to do some goal setting from the council, not for me, but for as the council and as staff, try to get some ideas and have a little discussion that way. Like 6, but I don't know on your schedules.
I'm available anytime after 4.
I prefer earlier.
I will send a calendar invite and we'll have to public notice it here. And then the other thing, so election updates. So the elections, let me just pull up the document. Basically, we have the mayoral seat's going to be open, and that will be from 22 to 2026. And then 2 other council open seats that are 22 to 2026. And then the remainder of Councilmember Nelson's appointment to fill the 2024 I'll be up for election as well. So here's the caveat. Councilmember Nelson or anyone that's going to run, rerun, or run will have to declare if they're running for one of the open seats for 4 years or if they're running for the open seat for the remaining 2 years. And Councilmember Nelson is able to run. He doesn't have to just run for that one as well. So whatever, or he can one of those that are up. I think Cheryl, you're up. So right. So if you wanted, I only wanted 2 more years, you could switch if you wanted. So really, but we just want
You
to
can't
make
do
sure.
both, right? Like
No,
you
you
can't
can't
run
do
for
both.
both because you can't hold both.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So that's why they have to declare it when they fill out their paperwork. If they're running, and I believe it's from June 1st to June 7th is the time period. And we already have ads going in the papers for a few weeks running. And then we'll put it on, Facebook and our website and things like that. So conferences, I'm just going to kind of go to my notes. I'll try to be brief as I can. Well, actually, before the conference, I had our insurance take a look at our roof again from the hail, and they actually changed their assessment to 2-inch hail damage, and so they're going to replace the entire roof with some of the ceiling, some leakage issues that we're having. I'm also going to have staff probably look at all of our facilities, so when the adjuster comes again, if we see anything else that maybe as well, because I don't want to have to go through claims again in a couple of years. I want to just knock it all out. So I was excited for that because at first I got a hard no from the adjuster. I contacted the insurance myself and said, we need to do something about this. So I was really happy about that. I'll only give you a few of the important highlights. So the American Rescue Plan basically can essentially it so when we talk about the deep well, right? And finding funding for that, I think it's $1.5 million, is that about what it is? So that's really where what I want to hit hard, but we won't have details of the criteria and limits to funding, et cetera, for sometime in May. I want to put that on your radar so that you're aware of that, and that's something obviously we're going to be diving right into. Along that same line, one of the sessions that I went to for the lead, not the St. Andrews Conference, but the leads conference in Utah, they started this thing called Prepare 60, because Utah's population will double from today by 2060. And the whole focus of that is what are we going to do about water? How do we conserve better? Some of the things that are happening are, for example, some cities have unmetered irrigation water. And the discussion that's been on the table for the last few years is requiring all cities to meter secondary water, which I have seen that in other cities have a dramatic positive effect. And grant funding and state funding did help that process. But who knows if they make that a statewide requirement. And I think that we're okay because all of our water is metered through the Collinger, the same. Mistaken, right?
All of our water is metered,
Yeah.
secondary and treated.
Yeah. So, but there are going to be other things like that to prepare, and a lot of education around water, how we can better conserve water. If there's anything else, I didn't know, Councilmember Nelson or Monson, if either of you wanted to talk about the rural focus and some of the rural sessions that we went to. If not, I hate to put you on the spot, but I didn't want to get anything either of you wanted to share.
might have some stuff that I might. So a lot of the stuff that I listened to it well, and it wasn't necessarily rural, but more getting the public involved in conversations that you're having before you actually like have the conversations, and just keeping that link good. So there's a bunch of ideas and things that they gave us, and I'll kind of go through those later, but overall that was it. A lot of focus towards like the general plan, making sure that you have an updated general plan, making sure that it's reviewed frequently, especially with changing members of council. Yeah, just, I mean, lots of really good stuff, but those are kind of the highlights that I got, that I wrote down.
I went to the, what do they call it, Resort and Rural Hub. That was a lot of Park City, Moab, Springdale, but some of that applies to us and some of it probably will apply to us, but they talked a lot about the housing problems, mostly due to short-term rental regulation, or the lack thereof of short-term rental regulation. And I guess there's a bill that passed a few years ago that restricted what cities can do. I don't know enough about it, but
Yeah, it kind of tied cities' hands on restricting, but zoning can still help restrict that, what zones it's allowed in.
and then they talked about other part of things like we talked about last time. I think the issue with the ATVs or UTVs in town, people driving, I think it's probably a bigger issue up there, but talked about that. And then I went to the land use and talked a lot about ADUs, which we've been doing a lot, and Brett knows a lot about that, but I don't know, the deadline was soon I don't know if you thought about, were we gonna zone 25% where you couldn't use ADUs, or are you just gonna do all of them? That there was a deadline, I guess, but it was coming up in May, I think.
Yeah, they have a deadline, but then they give you more time to, I'm hoping to get more details on that. There's some training coming up in May.
So,
And that, some of that will be coming from the planning commission to the council here soon. some
yeah, so
recommendations.
anyway, that's about all.
Yeah.
Do you mind, so I forget that this is the information section that was on the
Yeah.
end.
But you do want to
I
share
do
more.
have a few, a few things, not a ton. I met,
I'm done, so.
okay, perfect. So I met with the governor's office today, actually. I met with Stephen Lisenby, who is the rural affairs guy, and then Mike Mowers, who is the
He used to be the
intergovernmental
governor's chief of
relations.
staff.
Yeah, he used to be Governor Herbert's chief of staff. Anyways, I met with them today and talked about several different things. There is a meeting, or I guess the 7-county infrastructure coalition is meeting down here this week, Thursday and Friday. They're going to Navajo Mountain to discuss the plans on the road plan. I guess they have a plan to extend the highway from here to Navajo Mountain. And then water. There's a big list of things that included,
Like a direct route from here to Navajo Mountain.
yeah.
Or
So it's the San Juan County Transportation Projects. There's
that's
a,
what that was.
yeah, so there's, I can get you all a copy of this. They gave this, it's a One Utah roadmap. This was at the ULCT conference, but this is the governor's plan for like rural Utah problems and issues. But the meeting with the coalition's about the San Juan County Water Project, the Transportation Project, which includes the road and also a rail line from Moab to somewhere past us, Arizona, to Winslow, Arizona. Anyways, that meeting's tomorrow. I don't think I'll be able to go to Navajo Mountain. And I
Do you
don't
know
know.
what time that's at?
They didn't give me times. So they gave me the number to the guy, Mike.
Mike Mann? Why don't you send it to me?
Anyways,
See
yeah.
if I can, if I can make it.
Yeah, and then they're meeting with the Navajo Nation Friday. So I had that meeting today, and I set up another meeting within that meeting with the governor's office on the suicide and mental health issues that, I mean, the country's having, but it's a community-based problem, I think. So to try and come up with some community-based solutions to that problem. There was one more thing that I was gonna say, but I can't remember what that was. So that'll do, I guess.
Okay, nice. All right. Staff, Kim Palmer, Finance.
finance report is in the packet. I hope you had a chance to look at it. If you have any questions for me. If not, I will tell you that if we're going to be doing the budget work session on Tuesday, I will have the preliminary budget done by Friday. Huh?
You got this.
I'll send you a text and let you know that it will be here ready to pick up when you have time to swing by.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Kim?
And as always, I'm happy to answer them outside of the meeting if you run across something.
Okay, we'll move on to Economic Development and Visitor Services, Pratt.
Right, we move that up a little bit just so it's in the canvas view.
We used to approve we used to make a motion to approve this invoice register as part of our, did we do that as
Yeah,
part of our, we
it's,
don't need to do that?
because
So
this
we
is only
approved
presented.
last, well, and we do it in the, like, so we would
You
approve it
approved
next
the-
time in the minutes.
You approved the minutes. The reason why this is for information, because you've already approved, but when you approve the budget, you've already approved staff's ability to make these purchases and move forward. So there's no need to approve this. This is just for your information that here's how we're spending the already approved budget. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
All right. Council. No mayor, I guess.
We saw the mayor. Oh, now she's.
I'm totally kidding.
If you look over that real quickly, just a real brief update here. In an effort to get a few more people to apply for that RFP for the guide and outfitters in the visitor center, we're gonna leave that open for one more month. That ended on the 23rd. We did have an applicant, but we want to see if we can get a few more and market that a little bit better and see if we can't come up with a few more proposals in the next 30 days. And then if you'll look, one of the things that was approved for it was approved for 2022. We kind of started going on it because we had funds that we could have used this year, but with materials and getting things done by June 31st, it wasn't going to happen. But if you look on those following pages, we've looked at a few different quotes for entrance signs in town. So we have the two. There's one up there north of town and one south of town, right at the city limits. So we've got a couple different designs here. We're just kind of in that initial process. This first one is a used to composite material. It's an all-weather material that looks like it's wood.
Something like decking.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. The color and things can change, but that was just kind of a simple one of just, it looks like it's a natural existing sign with nice metal lettering on it, our city logo. We could change the welcome to or, things of that nature, but there's that rendering. Sign number 2, which is the one with 2,900 on it. That one is a stucco sign, and then similar, it would have metal lettering, but it would be a stucco box.
And that's the one that Visibility is quoting for 17,000.
Correct. Yep. And so all these, I sent them what we wanted, and then they all have different expertise. So this is some things that they recommend. So if you're wondering why all 3 are different material, that's why it's because they're, visibility is better at this. They felt like it would last quite a while as well down here. But all of them, what they essentially would make is a box that we would just cut. There's 4 metal posts in ours. They would cut those off, and the box would sit on those. So we can put it right on the stone. We can put it up. We can choose. But in essence, we don't have to do any of the masonry at the bottom, which saves us quite a bit of money. That's where most of the cost comes in delivery and installation, and if they have to build the bottom masonry. We already have that, so that's good news. And then,
Is Yesco's so expensive because it's for 2 signs and the others are all for 1 sign?
no,
or
theirs is an
it's made of
aluminum. Theirs is an aluminum material, and then they've got a couple different things that they'd have to do some work to ours to build up from the masonry up. And as you can kind of see here, they do a little more,
I like that.
a little more
backlit as well as opposed to.
Yeah, it probably is backlit, but
That's nice.
anyway, but yeah, that one, as you can see, it's, you know, almost triples the cost of the first sign,
So
so.
Pratt, can you clarify, I think it's this one. So this has the 13,000, then an additional 5,000. That's because what they're saying there is if we use our existing lights like this, then it's 13,000, but if we have the letters backlit, it's 18,000, is that?
No, that one's for them to bring it down and install it.
Oh, okay.
And so that one especially, this one would be very easy for us to install, a backhoe or a forklift. It would be much more reasonable for us to do that, to spend the day doing that than to have them come down. So that price ranges from 13 to 18 because of that. They can ship it. We can also just go up with the trailer and get it. They were really flexible. They're the one impacted who didn't want to sell those signs, their new pension signs as well. So they're really flexible. They've been really easy to work with. The rendering looks good, you know, but that Public Works just actually replaced. So that's been nice. Either way, they'll be lit better than they have been in the past. Update on the project. Feedback here if you want to send it an email on whatever is appropriate.
We just wanted you to be aware because we were going to try and do it with some of the capital money we were going to spend this year. We're going to try and do those signs with that capital money, but none of these vendors could do that before the fiscal year end. And we have to do that before the fiscal year end. So we want to let you know that this is where the original plan to do it next.
So we were in a hurry, now we're not in a hurry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can do it in that short of a time frame.
Okay. I think it's good. I appreciate being part of the discussion before the decision's made. So,
Yeah, and then with, and we mentioned this last time, we have a few other RFPs coming in the next few weeks and months, and we'll have those far more involved here before we ever put those
Okay.
out. So we'll get those put together and then bring them to you for corrections, additions, and then we'll. So,
So gas code, which is the highest, but obviously the sign is the fanciest. It would allow us to do a similar thing to this Ivan City one.
yeah, it would be pretty, it would be a little more in
Do
depth.
Blue Mountain behind that, or Natural Bridges, or actually it would be Blue Mountain,
You could probably, I mean, we could do whatever we decide. I mean. we
or
could
whatever,
do-
I guess it would.
We could do some type of a
But that-
silhouette, yeah.
Yeah.
I would
So
think
we could do
that-
like the logo
that
in
price-
that bottom
that cost?
part and something.
Yeah.
on top or whatever.
Yeah, it's a pretty in-depth quote. There's, you can look at that scope. It says it can manufacture two single-facing sign cabinets, approximately it's 5 feet tall by 17 feet wide. They're made of aluminum. You know, if he had quoted on here as a wood paint finish, it's a faux wood paint finish to give it kind of a natural feel with the lettering mounted as well.
Oh, so it doesn't look like it does
So-
include the back, the mountains that are back there.
Well, it may or may not. I can clarify that though and see what it would add or wouldn't if that's included.
What's the lifetime of these signs?
All of them, I was very clear that I wanted them to last a long time. I think that's kind of why Yesco does really, you know, they're going with aluminum because that's what they do. You know, they do a lot of aluminum signage. They told me it would last, you know, 10 to 20 years. And then the stucco people assured me that no matter what, it would last 10 to 20 years. And then the composite material with impact, you know, that one I do believe would last the longest, but.
Or at least till someone hits it with their.
That's what I was saying.
So,
what's our guarantee for that?
and I think what we had approved was roughly $18,000, and that's kind of why those first two are in that range. But we can also work with Yesco and possibly do something. What they do show is he could even print something on the aluminum that kind of gives it more of a feel with, you know, blending, protruding, even if it's not, you know, coming out of the back of it is an option as well, I think. So all three of them were happy to work with us. I think if we had, you know, more of a direction, we wanted to get something at least to show you first, and then we can dial it in.
Simple is always cheaper.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
it's fine.
Good.
Am I allowed to go into the public hearing a couple minutes early?
Actually, the way we do it now is, it's just the public hearing is noticed to start when the start of the regular meeting starts. So you can do it whenever it comes up next, so.
Okay, do we have to motion to go into a public hearing? Okay, okay,
I'll second it.
all right, that's Turk and Monson, all in favor? Aye. All right, we are now in public hearing. If anyone would like to speak about the Meadowlark bond extension, now's the time. We should have one of those clocks. 20 down, 10 down, 8.
Big old digital one. Put it on TV.
Okay, doesn't look like anyone's here to speak to that, so I will accept a motion to go back into regular session.
I'll motion we go into regular session.
That's Monson and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go to discussion items number 1, baseball infield dirt.
So council, this is something we talked about before. If you read my memo, Councilmember Nielsen and I met with Jimmy Johnson at the baseball field and David Palmer to kind of discuss options. Essentially, it's the idea, they said, well, because some of the constraints we have is budget. We've got to work in the budget. Is there enough time to work in the budget? There's really not right now. And so they said, well, what if we got everything donated? And I said, well, then that takes a lot of the red tape out of it. But the process that we need to go through first is present it as a discussion item. Is that something the council would be interested in as a body to say, yes, as a body, we have an interest of, if the community wants to put together a plan to get all the donations. And then if there is that interest from you as a whole after tonight's discussion, then what we would do is we would work with them. And, you know, as they put together kind of this community plan, then they would need to come back to the council and say, here's what our plan is, here's who's donating, here's where the funding sources are coming from. And is there still, like, say they needed, I'm just making it something up, they needed $50,000, but they could only get 30,000. Do they still have a request from the council? So pretty easy. I don't know, you kind of have been taking the lead, so I'll kind of turn it to you.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people about this. Yeah, so Jimmy, and I mean, with all those letters, I mean, there's probably a dozen letters or more. I think the community's support, but they do need it. I mean, you've been down there, you see how bad they are. I talked to Duncan Olson. He's the former resident here. He managed over 300 fields in the Denver area for a while. They would they would get new dirt on their fields every 3 to 4 years. And I think, how long has it been since we've had new dirt? 20, maybe close to 20? Never. I mean, but this is the original years.
Original dirt.
So I think that somebody's done. I talked to where they Red Rock, the place in Cedar does dirt. I mean, they recommended, it would be about $18,000 just in the dirt alone from what they recommend. That was for 2 inches, which I think is what you wanted. Jimmy thought we could do it for an inch. He talked to Price, and I talked a little bit with Price too. They did an inch, and their fields have turned out pretty good. And
How long ago did they do theirs?
about 2 years ago. They haven't had any problems with it. Ryan Palmer, former baseball coach here, he had got some dirt from Phoenix. I haven't talked to them yet. I've got their phone. I need to call them, but he got some dirt from Phoenix area, and they replaced the field, the infield dirt on the baseball field themselves, and they did it for significantly cheaper than what these quotes are from like DuraEdge and stuff. But they did it for probably about $2,000, $2,500 or something like that. And I think it'll be more than that. But problem, I guess, would be Jimmy thinks he can get enough donations to cover all the dirt. I don't know about transportation. We have to talk to some people, and same with like talking to somebody to come and dig the fields out and level them and getting the dirt on the fields. But
So what I recommended is, the staff, I don't think there's any reason why we wouldn't support the community put together donations and stuff. We would just need to work with them to know what the plan is. I think recommendation of 1 inch or 2 inch for level service. So I did 1 inch. I'd like to find out, maybe we could have more discussions, and we could come back to the council and say, hey, here's kind of what we're thinking, 1 inch or 2 inch. And I think as we work with Jimmy and others in the community, we can come up with a good plan plan and go from there. But I didn't know if there was, I just wanted to make sure we went through the formal process of getting consent from the council for staff to move in that direction.
Can you speak a little bit more about liability?
Yes, so that was something important that I tried to convey to Jimmy, and I've already talked to our insurance. We would just need to make sure that any contractors who are donating time or machinery or resources, they have, and I'll get that from our insurance, the trust, but they'll tell us what the required level of liability coverage they would need to have. And we as a city would need to be added as an additional insured. And there may be other little things that they would need, but they'll get us that detail if this is the direction we want to move forward. But it's pretty simple. I mean, most contractors should already have that and should be able to do it. Really, a lot of times what it is preventing. I've been in other cities where well-meaning volunteers have, after like a flood, tried to backhoe things, clear the streets, and they cleared it down the sewer drain. And basically, it's just to make sure that we have professionals that have proper coverage handling things, that it's not just well-meaning people who unintentionally,
Well, and I'm concerned about, someone says they volunteer to bring the dirt and then they have an accident and then they sue the city and say, but I was transporting the dirt for you.
And that's why we would need to be
So-
additional insured. Exactly. Yeah, that was my number one concern. Well, my two concerns were liability coverage. If we're having volunteers help with things. And then the second one is if there's still budget requests, well, that means the council would have to look at the budget as a whole and say, hey, is this a priority this year? Or do we need to prioritize it next year?
Okay.
That would be, but that won't even come probably until after you've approved the budget, or we're basically there for this upcoming years. That's why I said it would take a lot of the red tape out. If they could get all the donations, it would just make life easier for everyone. And I've done a similar project like this for a baseball field where we gathered all the community and did this. And it was an awesome experience. We got sod donated and everything. It was just one field, but they really are a great community building.
And I think we
project.
shouldn't
So,
stand in the way of people that are committed to a project. So
yeah, we're
if
volunteering.
we can
and
make
donating.
it happen, it makes sense.
I think if we need to, we should be willing to pay some, I think. I mean, I'm willing to make.
Yeah, and I think that's why we want to see what the plan is. Let's figure out what the plan is, what we can get donated, and if we're talking like 10% of the cost, like $5,000-$10,000, I think that's more reasonable, right? But if it's like 60% of the cost of the city's covering, that's something that the council, you as a body would have to evaluate, and us as staff would probably recommend. I think the other thing that I just would want to make sure is clear is that our rec director is our rec director for a reason. And so I would still want to make sure that it's clear that he's leading the charge on, what needs to be done on the field, that his recommendations are what we should go with. And then we need to get the donations from there. So
I appreciate the community's trying to get donations, and I support, if anybody's going to try and make this city better, I support 1,000,000%, but those people also pay taxes to the city. And I feel like we need to do our part as a city to make sure those fields are properly taken care of. And that doesn't mean that our city residents should have to pay for those costs if they're already paying taxes to this city. So I just want to make that's my stance, that if they want to get donations, I think that's great. And I mean, we'll always take that. And I think we should, because I think it'll help with our costs, especially if there's people who are willing to do it. But I think the city needs to do its part as well.
Well, I think you'll see when we do the budget work session why staff has some hesitation about just jumping into that, because that hasn't been on the radar. And we have limited funds in capital right now for recreation that doesn't even cover one of the current projects that's on the list. So that's why we have some reservations. Not that we disagree with you. We actually totally agree with you. It's just we have a limited number of funds. And so we need the council to give us direction. How do you want those funds spent? So,
Well, I have to speak to that there is a large portion of our taxpayers that never use that either. And so if we're saying that we're asking all of the taxpayers to pay for something that, they don't have kids or grandkids or
There's a
themselves
large
that
portion
use
of
it.
taxpayers that don't use
So-
the pool. There's a large portion. I mean, that's
I
how
know,
a
and
city
so, but
operates.
so we do have to look at that too.
No, I agree. And that's why we have to be wise in the spending of our dollars. I agree. But I do think the city shouldn't just leave it up to the residents. We need to
I
be
agree.
supportive in this process and we need to pay
Well,
our portion of this process,
But the reality is,
whatever that is, because we all don't use everything within the city that taxes pay for.
yeah,
But there's a lot of people who use those fields. There's a lot of children who use those fields and I want the fields to be safe.
but I think the reality
We need to do our
is,
part.
if we're going to pay for it, it will move at the pace of government.
yeah.
If volunteers, if people get donations and things, it will move at private,
And that's why,
private speed,
donations.
basically.
And
You know what
that's
I mean?
why-
Like, because looking at our capital improvements plan, it hasn't been on our 5-year, it hasn't been on our 10-year. So it's kind of hard to suddenly bump it up if it's going to be a substantial cost,
Yeah.
I think.
and that's why.
My issue is that nothing gets done on the capital projects list.
So let's just budget for
So
it.
you guys are diving into exactly
Budget for it,
to
take
the,
it out.
two of the points that I feel are really important. That's why, the one is when, Councilmember Nelson said, hey, what if they get it all donated? And after we met on the field, he mentioned that and I said, well, that would make things so much easier, okay? Because it doesn't have to go at the pace of government. It can go faster. And then two, to your point of, we should have been planning for this, right? That's why I've been, when I first got here, I said, we really need to focus on, for not just Parks and Rec, but all of our departments creating long-term master plans and capital plans. So that we can know, oh, in 5 years, we should be saving up for baseball dirt or for new sand in the filter for the pool, which they've been doing, or whatever the case might be. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is just one of those big, those big expenses that have to happen. I just don't think it should all fall to the residents. It should be
I think
budgeted.
we move forward though, and
Yeah.
we're trying
You
to.
want me to tell him to move forward?
so I guess that's what I was gonna ask. Is there consent from the body of the council for staff to move forward in this direction?
David, you've been involved in this, haven't you?
I was, and, my only concern is making sure somebody had the right equipment that leveled it, so that when we do put it on, it's put on evenly across the whole field instead of.
Yeah.
And Jimmy did mention Sondragers had laser guided.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've already
So
talked about this.
what I'd like to do is, I'll work with Councilmember Nelson to set up some meetings, but I really want the primary contact to be with David Palmer and Jimmy, planning and moving forward together on how it's gonna happen, so that,
Can we set some deadlines?
I'd like to be able to see some sort of a plan. We'll talk to them. I'd like to see in a month, kind of where are things at, who have you been able to get on board? And then from there, do they need more time to get more people? And if it's sooner than a month, great, but I think at least a month from today,
Okay.
at least some sort of preliminary plan. Do you feel like that's
Can we
probably
have a
fair?
rough number by next week? Like,
By
not
next
super early, but like when we're at the work session, when we have our work session, it'd be nice,
That'd be
yeah.
good.
Even super rough, like very, I know that that's hard.
He laughed.
My stress level.
I've gone from here to here. I've helped with it as well, and I know that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what we would need is, well, we can meet, we can talk to Jimmy tomorrow sometime and kind of see what he's already got. And then, depending on what he's already got, we'll determine whether or not.
Just
we
whatever
can get some-
information you have would be good to know.
Okay, so during the work session, yeah, well, let me type this in.
Clarify, we don't use all 4 of those fields, do we? Is there one field that's just a practice?
There's the baseball field, which we would not be doing, because that's the one that Ryan Palmer redid, and then there's the 3 other fields. There's the softball
We are
field.
planning to do all 3 of the others.
And that was another question. I mean, would we maybe want to try 1 or 2 fields and see how it goes with that too? I don't know.
I think if when the recreation program's playing, if they're using all 4 fields, and I don't think they do.
They use the 3
They
levels.
use 3.
Well, they use the, yeah, they've got the baseball, the older baseball boys playing with.
So what I'll do is,
And can I just ask, why can't we just do the same thing? If they only spent $2,500 doing that, why can't we just do that again?
I think
That's
that's,
because we're putting roadblocks in the way as a
Well,
city?
we have 3 more, we have 3 fields.
Well, I know, but
so-
if they spent $2,500 to redo the baseball fields, why can't we just spend
Well-
$2,500 to redo?
so I mean, Jimmy thought it could be done for about, I think about 12,000 is what he told me, but, I mean, but I think they only put an inch on the baseball. Do you remember, was it an inch they put on the baseball? And we're looking at 2 inches
How long ago was that, Jen? Do you remember?
about 2 or 3 years ago.
And the other thing that they told me when I was
For everything.
doing this, Ryan Palmer said that the biggest difference is that that field had other stuff added to it by several other coaches. So the one that was done had some work, like they had been working on it. It wasn't completely done. They didn't get it all the way, so it was less dirt. But they said that they would need to remove that there's about 4 inches of the cinder stuff. And I don't know on numbers, and he wasn't exactly sure. He thought that there was going to need more work because they're going to have to take more out and put a little more in, the 2 inches versus the 1 inch that they did before.
That field had been maintained maybe a little better.
Just maybe not maintained, but like several
Like
people had
they've
tried
added.
to work on it. So maintained, I guess, is still the right word, but
More work had been done on it prior to bringing in more.
Okay,
is what it
thank
sounds
you.
like. So what I'll do is we can try and reach out to Jimmy tomorrow or sometime this week, see what donations or volunteers or whatever he's already got in place, just to give you a brief idea. I'll give you a brief during our work session where that's at. And then from there, because I'm going to guess he probably doesn't have a completed plan yet, and David hasn't even met with him about any kind of completed plan. So I think at least,
he has a completed plan.
yeah. So I'm thinking at least a month to come up with a draft of something for them to have the opportunity to work with the community. Because I think right now it's just been, is the council okay with us moving forward? So I don't know that he's definitely been putting out the feelers, but I don't know that he's hard pressed it yet because we haven't known yet where the council's support is. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good job.
All right, Terry, let's talk about resolution 427, 2021-1 Meadowlark bond extension.
Let's do this. We
Yes.
talked about it a whole bunch. We've had a public hearing. We have a resolution. So unless there are questions, it would be really great to have a motion to approve resolution 04-27-2021-1 Meadowlark subdivision bond extension.
so this was just because it's expiring like next
This
month or
month,
yes.
something?
This
Okay.
It gives them 1 more year to complete the work.
Okay, I'll motion to approve resolution 4-27-2021-1.
Second.
Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like a law firm.
Nice. Law firm.
Good.
I like
It's not
it.
happening.
Thank you.
The mountain part.
Now let's talk Westwater Power Project, resolution 4-27-2021-2.
Okay, making great progress on the Westwater Power Project. We have a construction agreement. Packet, there's been one little change recommended by N2A's attorneys. So. Make it look like we're keeping things moving. Or we potentially recommend that we get this construction agreement approved. However, to make that happen, that needs to be done with 1 or 2 contingencies. For sure, one contingency would be that approval is contingent upon N2A getting the sovereign immunity waiver completed. We don't want to enter into this agreement until we have that waiver. They're working on that. That should be complete on May 9th. And so we would be able to execute this agreement based on council approval after May 9th. The other one, they had some language that they changed. Kendall's here tonight to answer questions. Kendall and I believe they're looking for unilateral change.
So if you look at the agreement in your packet, it's paragraph, enumerated paragraph 18. And they changed, so it said, is the agreement in their packet redlined? Or
It is.
in the-
Or not.
No, okay. So they changed,
It's on page 7.
at the very top of the agreement, you have the definitions of who the parties are. You have customer and company. Customer being NTUA, company being the city of Blanding. And it used to say that the customer would indemnify the company. They changed that to say, I believe it says the party will indemnify the other party or something of that nature that I'll be honest with the council, I'm not sure what that would even mean. It seemed like an odd change that really just muddied the water. I'm not sure if they were looking to make it so that both sides would indemnify each other. But if that's what they're looking for, there's better ways to do it. And so I have heartburn about that change. They only changed 2 words, but it certainly muddied my understanding of what that would look like if it went in front of the judge. And so I have heartburn about the change.
So they call themselves customer and then in parentheses indemnifying party.
So is that not the, did you not put in?
No, I think
Okay.
we just got.
Oh,
where it says
okay, I was like, it
customer-
says customer.
Right, no, so that word has been changed. Customer.
That is odd.
And the other part that I have concern about is the parties are, the customer and agreement. And so we those terms about the agreement. And so that's why I'm not really sure what they intend by the change that they made in that paragraph. I personally would like more information before I told the council, yeah, I'm good with it.
So are you comfortable with them motioning to approve if certain changes are made? Or would you feel more comfortable if they waited on this until
One contingency is on STAR, in my opinion, which is what Terry's already talked about, doing the sovereign immunity waiver. And that's a process that takes them, 30 days, and they're about done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's well on its way. So that contingency would have to be in there.
But you're comfortable if they approved it based on that?
The,
When did you say that was? May
That's-
9th?
that's
He's
what I mean.
such a lawyer.
Well, our meeting's 2 days later, so I'm not comfortable approving it without.
so I'll read you. Terry, do you have a hand here? I can find my emails really quick. I just, no, I'm not comfortable, honestly, with the way that with the changes in paragraph 18 without understanding what their interpretation of what that means, and maybe finding a better way to get to where they want to be. I'm not saying that what they want is something we can't give them. I just am not sure what they want, and there's probably a better, more clear way of getting to where they want to be on paragraph 18.
So what I recommend, the reason why, and Terry highlighted this, the reason why I wanted this to come before you was to show that in good faith, we support this contract. We're not trying to hold it up or anything. And so I think, if the council as a body is not comfortable with it and wants to table it till the next meeting, until those things are cleared up, you can state that we, whoever makes the motion, I'm in support of this, but I want to table it just to make sure those things are cleared up. Or you could vote to approve or turn it down. I mean, it's still up to the council.
Kendall, are you speaking with their attorneys?
So the way that it's worked so far is
You've been-
And Shane,
and UAMS is involved as well. Like UAMS is the one who initially drafted, someone at
Yeah.
UAMS.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I mean, what I would request is that if they, rather than have it get lost in translation, I would be fine with having a conversation with their attorney just to try to get to where we want to be. I don't have a problem with that. It just hasn't been the case. Terry brought it to me initially. I had some changes I wanted. They actually adopted all of those changes. The only thing that they came back with was this change. It's not necessarily a bad change. Again,
And we just verified this today, right?
I think it was late last week after I'd already given you stuff for the packet, and I just didn't even realize. I thought the only thing they'd added was just the contact information on the bottom. I didn't realize this.
So for clarification, this is what that paragraph 18 says, if you have it in front of you now. It says, the party, and then in parentheses, indemnifying party, agrees to protect, defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the other party.
Oh, that's weird.
And they just, yeah.
Right, and so that's why
Y'all got it.
They're trying to make it an.
I don't know,
inclusive for
that's
both
what
parties.
Terry and I talked about this afternoon, and that's what we think. Without talking to them, I don't know. But there's better ways of doing it. That's
You're
what-
okay with that change.
Right, if they want, if we want to identify each other, I don't have a problem with that. There's just a better way to do it than that.
And make it unclear. I just have to say, I'm amazed at how quickly this is moving forward, considering how many years this has been kicked around. And so,
Okay, well, if we want, I mean, let's just table it. So we're only gonna be a day or two behind, when they actually get the sovereign immunity waiver completed before we have our next council meeting. So I'll work with Kendall and make sure we get this language in a form that everyone can agree upon. And then, just so council knows the process, once we get this agreement signed, I mean, N2A is ready to sign. Then, and we have the sovereign immunity waiver and everything, then Blanding City will be able to turn ICP loose. We get a contract with them to do the engineering. And we will also at that time be able to bill NTUA. We will bill them for the 195,000 or whatever the estimated cost is. And the way this contract reads, when we get all done, if there's money left over, we'll refund it. And if they owe us more, we'll bill them. So.
this is great.
This is one thing the governor's office was actually super pumped about. They were super grateful for everyone at the city being so willing to work on it and get it done as quick as everyone has, so.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you.
So we
Do we
need
need to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion that we table this till next meeting.
I'll second it.
Resolution 014.
That's Turk and
I need
Monson.
to read the
The
resolution.
alternative.
I like it. I like to know what the motion is.
Let's do the.
He's gonna do it official. He's gonna say it.
Okay, so we're on the page.
Right, you got it.
Okay, I make the motion that we table resolution 427, 2021-2 until our next meeting.
The Westwater Power.
Westwater
Project.
Power
Yes.
Project Construction Agreement.
And I second his motion as stated.
So usually with the tabling, it's better if there's a reason you're tabling it to.
Okay, the reason being is we want to get the language clarified on the advice of our attorney.
And we want to make sure that we get the sovereign immunity waiver passed.
I second
Okay,
that.
so we've got a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I haven't been asking if anyone's opposed all night because I haven't heard one, so.
So if you've been opposed.
Too bad for you tonight. Sorry.
It's been unanimous, so I think we're okay.
Okay. We're done, so I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
We don't have reason for closed session.
Good, because I didn't want one
Because
tonight.
I wasn't allowed it anyway. I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Nice. All in favor? Aye.